Welcome back, everyone. Jake here. Currently, we're on day 75 of Russia's disastrous invasion of Ukraine, and today is May 9th, and this is Russia's Victory Day. Apparently, this is one of the largest holidays in Russia, and as an American, as a Westerner, living in a democracy, I just don't really see the appeal of driving tanks through your nation's capital. To me, this just looks and feels like something a dictator or an authoritarian or a fascist would do, but whatever, this is Russia's history, this is Russia's culture. So let's watch the first minute of this clip from Al Jazeera to get a feel for the May 9th celebration festivities.
It happens every year, but it's taken on added significance because of the war in Ukraine, a parade to commemorate the Soviet victory against Nazi Germany 77 years ago. An estimated 27 million soldiers and civilians from the Soviet Union died in the Second World War. Russian President Vladimir Putin compared the previous fight against fascism to the invasion of Ukraine.
В эти дни вы сражаетесь за наших людей на Донбассе.
You're fighting for our people in Donbass, for the safety of our motherland, Russia. May the 9th, 1945 will forever be perpetuated as a triumph of our one single Soviet people, of its cohesion and spiritual might and perilous exploits, both at the front line and at the home front.
Reviews of this parade, it was actually kind of downscaled and sad, only about 1/3 the size of their normal parade festivities. The obvious reason why is they're fighting a war, and a lot of their equipment has been destroyed or is being used in Ukraine, so they didn't have the luxury to have a big, nice, happy parade. So the build-up to this May 9th Victory Day celebration, there was a lot of speculation. What would Putin say? What would Putin do? And there were three possibilities. The first one is do nothing and pretend like this is just a normal Victory Day celebration parade, which is what Vladimir Putin ended up doing. But the second one was that Putin might have declared some kind of victory, saying we got the land bridge to Crimea, we control most of the Donbass, officially we've won this war, and we're just going to hold the territory that we've currently taken. But the third possibility was a declaration of war and mass mobilization of the Russian population. Why hasn't Vladimir Putin done this? Why hasn't he called up 300,000 or 400,000 reservists in order to supplement them and get them involved in the war in Ukraine? And the explanations why he's not declaring war and why he's not mobilizing the Russian reserves, one is that their system is probably terrible. They've never practiced this. If they were to call up 300,000 reservists to activate them, it probably would be mass confusion and the Russians would just embarrass themselves yet again. Additionally, if they call up 300,000 reservists to go to war, they don't have any equipment to give them. They didn't prepare for this. They don't have the boots or the body armor, let alone the trucks or the tanks or the planes to give these reservists. Additionally, if they were to call up these reservists, they would have to explain to the Russian people why. Why is this a special limited military operation just in the Donbass, yet they need to call up 300,000 reservists to win this limited special military operation? The final reason why Putin can't declare war and mass mobilize 300,000 reservists is because he needs those people. A lot of those reservists, those veterans, work in the national security apparatus of Russia. They're either police officers, or they're in the FSB, or they're in some form of security. So if Putin called up these 300,000 men and took them from their civilian jobs as police officers, I think the Kremlin fears that there would be rioting and protests, and they wouldn't have enough security in order to stop a domestic revolt or a domestic rebellion if they were to take those 300,000 men and rush them into Ukraine. So that is why Putin is not declaring war and calling up reservists. Now, this is his speech. It was pretty brief. It was only about 10 minutes, and I want to show you a couple clips from this speech that I thought were interesting. But up front, something interesting about this speech is he never used the word Ukraine. He said the words Europe, NATO, Kiev, Odessa, but he never mentions Ukraine by name, and that's the new line being given by Kremlin propaganda, that Ukraine as a state doesn't actually exist. They're Russian, they've always been Russian. They need to acknowledge, that's what this war is about, they need to acknowledge that they're part of Russia. So I found it fascinating that in his 10-minute speech, he danced around it, calling out Crimea and Donbass and Odessa and Kiev. But the new Kremlin line is you can't say the word Ukraine. So let's start with this clip, watching a couple bits of it, and we'll start here at the 4:10 marker. Oh, look, guys, he's crying. He's choking
The United
up.
States of America, after the collapse of the Soviet Union, started talking about their unique nature, diminishing people. But we are a different country. Russia has got a different character. We will never refuse our love and respect for the traditions and respect of traditions of all the cultures.
So this is Vladimir Putin by name calling out the United States, saying that the United States is not a diverse melting pot of cultures and languages and peoples. Russia actually is. The United States is terrible. Russia is the one who loves different cultures and different peoples and respects all the diverse people within the former Soviet Union. I'm going to have to just pause and laugh at that for a moment. Let's now cut ahead to the 7:04 mark in this speech.
Odessa in 2014, we also commemorate the memory of those who died because of the neo-Nazis and those who were fighting for Russia. We announce a minute of silence.
If you're just joining us, this is the military parade, the victory parade in Moscow, live, a minute's silence called for by President Putin for the Russians who've lost their lives, not only in the Great Patriotic War, as the Second World War is known there.
If you guys didn't know this, I'm a veteran, my father's a veteran, both of my grandfathers are veterans, and this guy, Vladimir Putin, doesn't care about veterans. And I can prove it to you with the events of the last 3 months. It's just been tragedy after tragedy for both those serving in the Russian Federation forces as well as Soviet veterans of World War II. This story is heartbreaking, but Kremlin to family members of the Moskva cruiser, ship sank by accident, no war compensation will be given. This is a picture of a sailor, Dmitry Shrebets, and Russian Federation authorities informed family members of dead crewmen from the cruiser Moskva that the state will offer them no survivor compensation because the warship sank by accident, not in military action, and their son's whereabouts are unknown. This is according to a report from May 6th. The letter from the Black Sea Fleet's Prosecutor General Office was sent to Dmitry Shrebets, father of the Moskva crew member Igor Shrebets, and was made public. So the official Kremlin propaganda line is that Ukraine does not possess the capability to sink their ships. Therefore, the propaganda says this ship sank by accident, a fire broke out on board. So because their son died in an accident and not in war, no survivor compensation will be given to the family who lost their son tragically. Additionally, it's just horrendous story after horrendous story. More than 7,000 unclaimed dead Russian soldiers are currently being stored in Ukrainian morgues. And the Ukrainian government is trying to return the bodies of these Russian soldiers back to Russia, back to their families. And Russia doesn't want them back. Russia doesn't want the family members told or knowing that their son is confirmed dead. They don't want the body to be seen. Additionally, there's lots of hard to prove, hard to confirm reports. This one about these Chechen fighters who were executing injured Russian troops. They were just shooting them at a field hospital rather than trying to once again treat and save their wounded. But there's lots of these crazy stories about Russian soldiers being injured, and rather than being taken to a field hospital and cared for, their officers are just executing them. So this war so far, and I understand these are the Ukrainian Defense Ministry's estimates, but it's estimated that over 25,000 Russian soldiers have been killed. This doesn't count wounded in action, missing in action, or POWs. And what is the purpose of this war? What is the benefit to all of these people? I guess everybody on the dais is probably part of Putin's inner circle, potentially, or I don't know, these veterans are for show. But it's just madness. All of this, what Russia is doing, is just madness. So what does Vladimir Putin think about Soviet veterans? Here's a picture of 97-year-old World War II veteran Ivan Lysen. And this is his house in Kharkiv that was destroyed by Russian forces. This man is 97 years old. Millions of Ukrainians died in World War II, fighting as the Soviets against Nazi Germany. And here is this sweet 97-year-old man. This was his entire world. This was his home. This was his yard. This is his dog. And the Russians, Vladimir Putin, made the conscious decision to bomb this house, destroy his car, just destroy his entire world. There's lots of also heartbreaking stories of Holocaust survivors. This is Vanda Semenyanova Obadovka. She died sheltering in a freezing basement on April 4th, according to her daughter. Ukrainian Holocaust survivors are fleeing war yet again, this time to Germany. That's an interesting title. Here are the two ladies who survived the Holocaust over 70 years ago. And at a retirement home on the eastern edge of Berlin, half a dozen women in their 80s and 90s sit together having lunch. Their chatter is lively in the toasty, warm dining room. They've just narrowly escaped death for the second time in their lives. The women are Ukrainian Holocaust survivors who fled the Nazis as children. Now in old age, they had to go on the run again, this time from the Russians, this time from their fascist quest to reconquer the Ukraine, to subjugate their people. So does Putin care about Russian soldiers currently serving? Does Putin care about Soviet veterans who fought in World War II? Absolutely not. And what does Putin care about? It's been widely reported now that Putin has honored the brigade accused by Ukraine of war crimes in Bucha. Russian president signs decree giving the 64th Motor Rifle Brigade the title of Guards, this is an honorary title, for defending the motherland and state interests. So this is the brigade that tortured and killed hundreds of people. They raped women, they burned the bodies, mass graves, people were tied and bound and then shot in the back of the head, and their corpses were laying in the streets for weeks, confirmed by satellites. So is Vladimir Putin honoring those who are fighting wars, fighting this war and winning battles, making progress on the ground? He's not honoring those brigades. He's honoring the one that showed the most inhumanity, the most brutality, the most cruelty, torturing and executing women and children, elderly people. It's I'm spiraling out of control here with this video. Just talking about it, it makes my blood boil. So here's the real truth about the Soviet victory in World War II that nobody in Russia is going to talk about. But the Soviet Union never would have been able to defeat Nazi Germany without the Lend-Lease Act and the aid given to the Soviets by the Allies, mostly the United States, Canada, and Great Britain. So what are the numbers? Let's go ahead and read it together. Even before the United States entered World War II in December of 1941, America sent arms and equipment to the Soviet Union to help it defeat the Nazi invasion, totaling $11.3 billion or $180 billion in today's currency. This might be a little outdated with inflation. This is probably higher in today's dollars. But the Lend-Lease Act of the United States supplied needed goods to the Soviet Union from 1941 to 1945 in support of what Stalin described to Roosevelt as the enormous and difficult fight against the common enemy, bloodthirsty Hitlerism. 400,000 jeeps and trucks, 14,000 airplanes, 8,000 tractors, 13,000 tanks, 1.5 million blankets, 15 million pairs of boots, 107,000 tons of cotton, 2.7 million tons of petrol, and 4.5 million tons of food. Do you really think that the Soviets had a chance of defeating Nazi Germany without the United States giving them 1.75 million tons of food? This is all of the routes that the United States, under the Lend-Lease Act, exported all of this food and materials to get it to Russia. So you're not going to hear the Soviet Union, Russia, Vladimir Putin accurately talking about the history of that conflict and what made their victory ultimately possible. So how do we end this video? How do we wrap this up? It's really depressing, the dog and pony show with Vladimir Putin on this day that should be solemn. They should recognize the service and sacrifice of their veterans, but ultimately, Putin doesn't care. He doesn't care about the people who have died. He doesn't care about the people currently serving. All he cares about is expanding his own power and influence, similar to any other fascist or dictator in history. Okay, that's all for this update video. If you found it informative, consider giving this video a thumbs up. Really helps out with the channel. If you know something I don't, let me know in a comment down below. I love hearing from you guys. Till the next video, take care, be safe.